So we have responded to the vision of Presiding Bishop Michael Curry's invitation to the whole Episcopal Church to engage in the work of becoming beloved community, to look and seek the image of God in all people and in all of creation, and also to work to grow a community of reconcilers and healers and justice makers in the name of Christ. For me, the way I've been experiencing the learning journey is both as my desire, a desire I've had for a long time of cultivating communities of practice and believing that places where we share both in learning and action and in reflection together are the places where we grow or are transformed. And I think we need each other to do that work. We need to be in relationship with other people who can ask us hard questions, who can reflect back to us. And as someone who's been in the process of helping to design the space and the gatherings, I find that I myself am learning and growing through these interactions. I think one of the most beautiful things is that our leadership team has tried throughout to model the very practices that we want to invite everyone into. So that's truth-telling and becoming more conscious of our own ways of thinking and our own ways of being in relationship with one another. And so we ask each other hard questions and we reflect back to each other places where we felt some dissonance or discomfort. And we've been able to talk to each other about where we're growing and where we're still confused or uncertain about the next step. And I have found that to be really, really helpful in my own growth. But that collectively, we're able to see the outcomes in a much different way than if just a small group of us had been working on it. I think we're seeing this kind of ripple effect happening across the Episcopal Church in Southern Ohio. And that gives me a lot of hope. It gives me hope that maybe we can work for justice together and maybe we can create communities that honor reconciliation and the diversity of expressions.
We have to know where we stand before we can ever attempt to move forward. And knowing where we are also encompasses knowing the history of how we got there. The learning journey is designed to help us start in the beginning. The main reason I've decided to work in becoming beloved community and work on the task force is the objective of trying to eliminate racism in our society at some point. And the reason that resonates with me is that race and racism has impacted me greatly. And before I leave this planet, I would like to know that I've done all that I can to make sure that it doesn't affect my children and their children.
The door you enter through determines how you experience the room. And so part of what I'm trying to figure out is I'm walking through this door of my own experience of privilege and of power, and I bring then assumptions into the space. I can't close that door, that's my door. So how do I make that productive and acknowledge kind of what I'm walking in with?
That if we could get to the point where we realized Christ was in everything, which includes everyone and the entire universe, you could never exclude anyone if your heart really understood that. You could never dominate. You could never oppress because the Christ is in all. So, beloved community is understanding that I see the Christ in you and you see the Christ in me, and we know one another and we love one another, even though we're different.
So Mary and Sarah from the Westwood United Methodist Church started this thing called Pub Theology. We meet one Sunday a month up at the brewery, and we spend an hour and a half kind of talking about whatever topic they come up with. So right after we had the first session for Beloved Community, right when I was starting to think about the covenant, and just as I was starting to wonder, God, can we have this conversation about race in Westwood and not have it go, right? So I said, why don't we do it at a Pub Theology? We'll just use some of the questions they gave us here that we had to answer, right? And so we did. And
And I threw it out there, right? I was starting with definitions. Hey, what I want you to talk about in your small groups of 3 to 4 is talk about what is white privilege. One of the questions that came out was, what do you say to your kids when they're walking out the door at night, right? You know, and you could just tell all the Caucasians were like, oh, don't be late, and make sure you fill up the car, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas the African Americans were saying, if you get pulled over by a cop, you know, they had a much different story. And I think that it was kind of like a bomb that got dropped right in the middle of the conversation, you know, and this is real, right? And this is what, in every African American that was in that group was repeating the same story in small groups that were not even connected. So I think it was an eye-opener for people.
I came to this retreat more out of a sense of that I feel like I should, out of something like a sense of commitment, but I am really pleased, I'm really moved that this has been so far a really special opportunity to break open those conversations and those experiences that kind of get, you know, buried and pushed aside, and it's an opportunity for us to learn and grow from each other and to live into that from a really deep place that we almost never get to. My hope is that those of us that are here will carry this out and carry this forth to our many churches and to our many places across the diocese, and that this sense, this connection, this relationship that we are building with each other can be replicated and built from and drawn out throughout the diocese, that the conversation we're having in this room can be had in, you know, church halls and in various other places and homes and restaurants, wherever throughout Southern Ohio.